Hey there, friends. I got a pretty interesting story from you here. I always enjoy the nerd life of these types of video presentations because I like to do a little bit of digging. I've always enjoyed chasing down that rabbit hole. You know what I mean? Finding something that isn't kind of an aha moment. Well, our friends over at The Truth About Guns put out a story here recently about The Trace. You'll know about The Trace. The Trace is a very anti-gun organization directly tied to Everytown for gun safety, one of the bigger anti-gun movements funded by billionaire Michael Bloomberg. Both of those organizations are, right? They're joined at the hip. Everybody knows that. Apparently, The Trace doesn't realize that everybody knows that. The Trace fancies themselves as a journalism outfit, as a news source, so to speak. Kind of as a, I don't know, I'm just going to use it as an example, as a CNN or a Fox News or something like that. They never have been, but they fancy themselves as that. They tend to lean towards, we're journalists, whenever everything they do is wacko far-left anti-gun supported and funded by an anti-gun organization directly. Looking at The Truth About Gun story, and more specifically Lee Williams. Lee Williams is a Substack writer also and does really good work. You ought to follow him. The Trace, the propaganda arm of former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg's gun control empire, wants the public to believe it's an actual newsroom comprised of actual journalists. That's a fiction they go to great lengths to maintain. The Trace calls itself the only newsroom dedicated to covering gun violence. Its staff refer to themselves as journalists rather than anti-gun activists who are paid by Bloomberg. Well, Lee went on to find that one of the Trace activists, Jennifer Masquerading, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, describes herself as a senior news writer at Team Trace. A senior propaganda writer would be more accurate. And she went on her Twitter page, and I gotta tell you, she's a big one. If you're gonna date this chick, you better bring her to a buffet. That's all I'm saying. She got a little upset when people said that they were an anti-gun group. She posted on Twitter, "You know The Trace is not a gun control organization. We don't lobby. We don't tell readers to support laws. We don't publish our opinions. We are all journalists. None of us have ever worked in advocacy. Our backgrounds are easily searchable. Why do you persist with this myth?" She went on to say, "Follow the bios. We all went to journalism school. The facts don't support your claims." Well, sugar, they actually do support our claims and everybody else's claims. And the fact that you're so defensive over the fact that you're being associated with people who you're actually associated with tells me that you are a flat-out liar. A binge eater too, but definitely a flat-out liar. But a Mr. Rob Romano, an intelligence associate at the Firearms Policy Coalition, great organization there, does a lot for the gun industry, Romano quickly pointed out a stunning similarity between the IRS Form 990s for The Trace and Everytown. Guess what? Both nonprofits share the exact same president. This is not a coincidence. This is actually the same guy. Romano actually posted the 990s, which show all of this information and show that they are flat out liars directly tied to them. They even use the same phone number, 646-324-8250. That's kind of weird. Do any of your tax forms share the exact same phone number as anybody else who's not directly associated with you? You probably don't share an extra phone number with the same phone number with anybody else, period. Let alone somebody who's not directly associated with you. Both hands in the same purse. Now, these forms don't lie. In fact, probably about 50% of the Trace's operating budget itself comes from money from Everytown. That is a provable fact that you can find in all of their tax returns. Now, one of the things that Lee Williams pointed out, and I wanted to take a little bit of a step farther to show the proof, and to his point and to my point, that these people are not journalists, that they are in fact a lobbying group. You don't have to go to DC and lobby with people to lobby for something. You can do it from your house, right? You don't have to be signed up as a registered lobbyist to lobby for something, to petition for something. But you know what? Let's take this chick, Jennifer Messia's own word for it, right? Let's scrutinize what they actually do based on what journalists used to somehow or another keep themselves in line. I will say this, I'm going to share something with you now that I don't find that any of the media actually uses, but nevertheless, I want to show you this. This is pretty much a list of ethical guidelines for people who are true journalisms. It's the News Leader Association. It's the Gannett Newspaper Division Principle of Ethical Conduct. Now we're going to come back to these guidelines, because there's a reason why I'm pointing this out and why I'm kind of prefacing this. We're going to go to the Trace's own website, and guess what? We don't have to go very far. On the first page, we find a story from Miss Macia herself, her very own self. So the one that got butthurt over the fact that she was called out for being part of an anti-gun organization, but yet fancies herself as a journalist, she's the one that I want to use, because she's the one that spoke out saying that she was in fact a journalist, not an anti-gun wacko. In her story, are handguns or rifles used more often in mass shootings? The very first thing in her subheading is in fact trying to get you to think a different way. It says concealable handguns have been involved in a majority of mass attacks for decades. I want you to look at that sentence. Concealable handguns. Let me ask you guys a question. Now maybe she's not part of the gun culture and she's too stupid to realize this. Or maybe that's two separate things, right? Maybe she's not part of the gun culture and just doesn't know this, or she's too stupid. But every handgun is concealable. Do you understand what I'm saying? Every single handgun, no matter how big or how small, is concealable. Everything except maybe a tank, and you could probably still conceal that in some form or fashion. Everything is concealable though. That's concealable, right? So she puts in her subheading to try to make it look like concealed handgun carriers are the problem. There's a reason why she put that. Concealable handguns have been involved in a majority of mass attacks for decades. Let me clear that up for you. Every single mass attack that a handgun has been used in, 100% of those were by a concealable handgun, because all handguns are concealable. Again, she's using this word to try to be disingenuous and slick and put that bug in people's minds, because again, we know that 47% of the American people are absolutely stupid. She can put that bug in their heads, and now they think every time they see the word concealable, that's a bad thing. And guess what? Concealed weapons, concealable weapons, those are all used in mass shootings, because she's painting that picture right here by generalizing and making you think that. This is disingenuous and this is a lie. This is not what a journalist with any kind of form of ethics would be putting out. But I go into her story, and further down the page it says, what does the data say about guns used in mass shootings? And I highlighted this one area. Before we get into the data though, it's important to note that the Violence Project looks at a narrow subset of mass shootings. Those that occur in public places, take 4 or 5 lives, and have no connection to underlying criminal activity. That means it excludes domestic shootings. How many times have I said on my channel here that if you're looking for the true root cause of some kind of a gun violence issue, you have to separate those and decide how these people come to the realization, the human mind, that they want to take another life. She's mad because some people don't include domestic shootings in their rampage shooting numbers. Well, that's just stupid. If you combine the two of those and you say, let's fix this problem, you can't fix it. Again, I've used the analogy before about the car. If you bring a car into a service shop and you tell them, hey, it's kind of pulling to the left, and they say, we need to change the oil, that's stupid. There's no one size fits all. You have to determine what the problem is and then try to fix it. She's mad because they're not throwing everything into the same bucket. That's just disingenuous again, and her trying to create a narrative that should not exist. And this right here is an outright lie by her. This right here is not even close. This is not a gray area. This is nothing but an outright lie. Assault weapons are being used in more mass shootings. Well, that's actually not true, but she tries to make it true. 2 out of 10 mass public shootings in the 1970s involved a semi-automatic assault weapon. You see what they did? Semi-automatic assault weapon. I talk all the time about how the Biden administration, these wackos on the anti-gun left, are now trying to say that every semi-automatic is an assault weapon. That's what she's doing right here. Now, I want you to see the small little fine print down here. Assault weapons include any automatic or semi-automatic firearm that can accept a detachable magazine and includes 1 or more additional features unnecessary for sports or self-defense, such as folding, telescoping, or thumbhole rifle stock, according to the Violence Project. Her definition also includes this. Her definition includes semi-automatic pistols. But now they're lumping all of these things in this same category because, again, 47% of these stupid people in America are now starting to believe this stuff. So they can do that, and they rarely get called out on it because guess what? Most of us don't look at their garbage anyway. It's that 47% of stupid people who are reading their stuff that won't question it because they don't know any better, and they want to believe what these wackos are putting in print. Now, when old Jen here talks about how they're not an arm like Everytown, it's kind of odd when you go to their website that one of the first things you see is a button at the upper right-hand corner of the page that says donate. Go to that page, and it's the same type of donation page that you're going to see on, guess what? Everytown. So we looked at her little story, right? It was cute. Actually, it was well written. I will give her this. She can actually put words on paper that make sense, and she punctuates and all that properly. So kudos on her English. Her grammar was really good. However, she's a liar. If you go back to the Gannett Newspaper Division Principles of Ethical Conduct, she violates a lot of them, seeking and reporting the truth in a truthful way. That didn't happen. You lied about semi-automatics, calling them all assault weapons. In fact, your own ATF that you love and desire for, they can't even tell you what an assault weapon is, but you guys assume it's something that it's not and put it in there. You were not seeking the truth. You were not reporting the truth. You are a liar. I want to point out the second bullet below under serving the public interest. You say we will be vigilant watchdogs of government and institutions that affect the public. You had not one single article on this entire website that had anything about the overreach and the screw-ups and the problems within the ATF that are heavily publicized everywhere, pointed out everywhere, common knowledge to every single American. You had 0 articles on that. This tells me you are not a watchdog of government and institutions. Only on those you don't agree with are the ones that you're a watchdog for. Exercising fair play. Come on, really? Look down there. We will correct errors promptly. Whatever. Whatever. And look, maintaining independence. We will remain free of outside interests. Whoa, stop right there. You got to stop right there. I can't even read the rest of that. You are practically a Siamese twin with Everytown. You are paid directly from Everytown and Michael Bloomberg. There's no way. Is this a new thing? There's no way you can convince anybody of this. Everybody knows who the Trace is and what they do. I don't understand the angle of this. I mean, again, is this a new promotional thing where they're trying to change their image and distance themselves from Everytown and from Bloomberg? Because every person on the street knows what's going on. This ain't a secret. Acting with integrity. I can't even read any of those bullets. I'm not even going to read any of them. I point out in a simple story on the front page of your website, lies, misinformation, all throughout your story. You can't sit here and tell me that you have acted with integrity in any kind of way, sugar. Being independent. Nope, I'm going to move on. I'm not even reading that one. Ensuring accuracy. Can't read that one either. Correcting errors. Nope, never mind. Not reading that one either. None of these apply. Folks, what is my point in all this? My point is vet your sources out. Vet the people that you look at. Nobody goes to CNN for news, right? Few people go to Fox News for news anymore. So why would you go to the Trace for news? You have to look at the organizations and who they're directly tied to. If for some reason, let me just say this on the left, and I'm going to give you an example on the right. If you thought or found out that the Trace was paid for by George Soros, would you believe anything they say? George Soros is one of the biggest socialists that hates America and is trying to unravel America and all the true values in America at every possible turn. We all know this. He's got his hands in so many people's pockets because he's got money to throw at them. Bloomberg does it a little bit more quietly, but he does the same thing. So are you going to tell me that if you knew that they were associated with Soros, that you would trust them? No. They're equally infiltrated by some wackos on the far left. Now, if you found out that Fox News had the same phone number on their tax returns, their tax forms, as Donald Trump, if you pulled up a tax return of Donald Trump and Fox News and they both had the same reporting phone number and they had the same president of both companies, would you trust anything that you heard or read or saw on Fox News? Of course you wouldn't. So why do you trust anything from the Trace?
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
Pichamos!